If there's one word in your vocabulary as an artist that's creating content on TikTok, it should be consistency. And there are two main kinds of consistency when it comes to being an artist on platforms like TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts. Basically everything pertaining to short form video content. The first part of consistency is in the quantity. In 2023, all the algorithms really care about is keeping people on their platforms. To keep people on their platforms, they need people that are creating content that will keep those people there. So the more you're kind of contributing to keeping people on the platform, the more TikTok is going to appreciate you. And now, granted, that is a long game. It is an investment over time, and it's not going to even happen in the first couple of weeks. You have to be willing to stick it out, but it's the same reason why we've seen people that have been doing it for a few years actually have developed growth. The caveat with that is that you can't just post whatever you please. You have to be putting in some kind of quality into the videos. If you're just recording a random snippet of your dog and throwing your song on it, you're phoning it in and they will recognize that. You have to put together something that people will actually care about watching and something that will actually make people want to care about what you're doing. That's what is ultimately separating those that are growing on the platform and those that are remaining at the average 250 views. It's hard to be willing to do that day in and day out and maintain that quantity, but it has to come with at least a little bit of value. The second aspect of consistency that we need on platforms like TikTok and Reels is in the quality, and not necessarily in terms of recording on some fancy camera or using, these fancy edits that make your content look really polished and clean. You don't have to do that in order to succeed on a platform in 2023. We're not looking for fancy cameras. You can simply record with your iPhone and get away with it just fine. But what I mean by quality in terms of creating content on a platform like TikTok is creating something that feels on brand, that feels reflective of your music, and ultimately has a purpose. Now, it's not just taking a random video that you have in your camera roll, throwing your music over it, and saying it's on brand because it's got music. That's just not gonna cut it. When it comes to quality in terms of short form video, it's finding something that you can repeat and execute time and time again. You want to have a sense of consistency from piece of content to piece of content. You want each piece of content to reflect you, reflect your music. Granted, it doesn't have to be the same cookie cutter video every time, just with a different song or a different section or even a different setting. You can do that, but that will get boring quickly. And it also doesn't have to be a new idea every single time. You can find what works and you can execute that in different forms and make slight changes that make it a whole new video. The point is you want to create content that if I see you now, I see your video 2 weeks from now, I can recognize who you are. And I don't necessarily wash it out with being just another artist on the platform. I want to be able to see your content today, see it a week from now, see it even a month from now, and be able to be like, I might not remember your name, but I do remember your face and I do remember your music style, or even that song in particular, because you can create plenty of videos around one song and get away with it. So the focus there is more how accurate is my content to who I am as an artist and who I am as a brand, as well as what my music ultimately sounds like. Is it reflective of what I'm trying to do with my career? If the answer is no, then you need to change your approach. Now, the hardest part of this puzzle is finding both consistency in quantity and consistency in quality and brand. It's not easy to have both, but when you have both, it will definitely grow. My best advice is always to start by the means of quantity in terms of, when you're first starting out and first trying to really develop momentum on the platform, is to focus on quantity. And if you're someone that's willing to really get into the grind of doing it over and over again, that's where I would start, because then you're getting used to being on the platform and getting used to putting out content around your music in a way that makes sense. If you're someone that's more about the brand and you have a solid sense of what that looks like for you and your music, maybe lean in favor of quality and post a couple times times a week to start, because ultimately then you already have a plan in place of here's what I want it to sound like, here's what I want it to look like, here's who I am. If you can wrap that in a nice little package and put that out on something like TikTok, go for it and do it, and focus on building up the quantity as you get more familiar with your creation process. But if you really are like, I'm kind of still new at this, yes, I make kind of the same sounding music, I know who I am as an artist, but I really just kind of want to build that momentum, lean into quantity. You don't want to start out trying to dive in and have both, because that is going to burn you out. You want to lean into one and then add in the other as you can, because that's ultimately how you're going to be able to sustain the growth. As you start to do something more and more, it's going to get easier. The process is going to be quicker, and you will be more effective as a creator on the platform. But to start out, you can't expect to make great quality videos that are very on brand and very reflective of you if you're diving in head first and trying to do that where you're posting twice a day and making it look as textbook you as you can. There is a middle ground, but you want to start leaning into quantity or leaning into quality. So you just have to evaluate which kind of artist you are when trying to build momentum on the platform. Once you have one down, all you have to do is add in the other. And then it's just a matter of continuing that grind until you start to see results. There is no guaranteed timeline on when those results might show up, but there is a pretty strong chance that they will sooner than you think. But you have to be someone that's willing to put in the time and the effort into creating content that is good for you and your brand. It's not just creating content for the sake of creating content. It has to be with a purpose. And once you put a purpose behind it, the whole game changes. So when it comes to consistency, you have to factor in quantity, but you also have to remember quality. It's a game to play. It's a tricky one and it's a time heavy one, but it's a game worth playing. You have to have quantity or you have to have quality. You don't necessarily have to have both, but you have to have one and you have to be striving to include the other. So with that being said, I think that will wrap this video. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, check out my website, and follow us across other platforms. You can find all the links down below. Thanks.